Hi everybody and welcome to the One Wildlife podcast with me, Abbie Barnes. This is simply a show about life, and as such there are no boundaries to where our conversations can take us. Along the way, we simply aim to inspire, empower, educate and uplift, exploring how we can all live our best lives every single day. Before we get started, I want to mention that this podcast is hosted by Spend More Time in the Wild, which I founded in 2016 to help individuals get outside for the benefit of mental and physical health. Over the last few years, the project has grown into a worldwide community of passionate and courageous individuals working together to enjoy the beauty of our wild spaces and protect them for generations to come. You can find out more about both the podcast and Wild by visiting www.spendmoretimeinthewild.co.uk. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, or head on to YouTube to watch the full episode. Eoin Hamilton is a marketing and business development mastermind. With a bachelor's degree from Dublin Business School, Eoin has a solid background in seeing organisations grow and flourish on a number of levels. Eoin also has a passion for the great outdoors, in particular hiking, climbing and astronomy. As such, in July 2019, he combined his passions and joined forces with friends Paul Finlay and Pete Britton to set up an app called Hiiker. Now, 1.5 years later, they are well on their way to achieving their goal of making long-distance hiking more accessible, with nearly 1,600 routes mapped and detailed worldwide. It's an incredible achievement. Eoin, welcome to the One Wildlife podcast.
Thanks, Abbie. That was fantastic. Deep dive into the world of Eoin Hamilton. Thank you.
That's it. I've been doing a little bit of stalking over the last couple of days, so it's been quite fun.
There's some of those things on the list. I was like, am I still? Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I do that.
A little refresher in your life's history.
I've been in my house for so long, I've forgotten who I am.
Oh gosh, it has been ridiculous, actually, hasn't it? But here we are, beginning of 2021. And how are you feeling about the year ahead?
Hopeful, a lot more hopeful than I have been over the last while. But I think, despite the world and what's happening at the moment, and the case numbers, but I am quite hopeful about the vaccine and just people acting and how they're acting amongst each other, social distancing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, hopeful is the word.
Hopeful is a good word. I like that word. It's nice to live in a hopeful way. Are you actually at home at the moment then in Ireland?
Yeah, I live just outside Dublin City. So I'm at home with my two housemates in a very cold house because our heating is broken.
Oh, sad times. I mean, I can see you've got a woolly hat on. You never know if that's style or temperature.
No, it's pure temperature. I also decided to shave my head a couple of weeks ago, so it's retaining a lot of heat right now.
Oops.
Along with the phone.
Well, hopefully that gets fixed pretty soon. So I'd love to kick off for the listeners, for us to dive into a bit of an introduction into who you are. So I mentioned that you have a history, or a background rather, in marketing. What is it about marketing, or what was it about marketing that sort of inspired you to pursue that further on an academic level?
So I worked in sales and retail for a very long time. One of the best things about that was communication. So getting to communicate with so many different people on a daily basis, and mostly in a fun kind of setting, being able to use your knowledge to I suppose influence in a way for people to come away with something that they want. But trying to do that in a much more ethical way was what I always wanted to do. So the reason why I went back to academia is because I always saw myself working in a communications role for either an outdoors organization or an environmental organization. So the path that I saw myself going down was getting a degree in marketing or communications, and then going on to do a master's in communications under the banner of environmentalism or climate change. So it wasn't just necessarily, marketing for, KPMG or, some big brand, a bank or anything like that. There was a kind of marketing with a purpose, which is kind of what I got in for.
I really like that, actually, because a lot of people in these industries go in, say, for the money, or to work with big brands. But that's super cool to have a focus, and already it seems from day one there, you're trying to steer it to move in alignment with your passions, which you've already mentioned, and I said about in the introduction, is the outdoors. So has that been something you've grown up with, loving the outdoors?
Like, funny enough, I've been going down memory lane a lot lately, trying to pinpoint where all this kind of love came from for the outdoors. And as a kid, didn't really go exploring, didn't go hiking a lot, didn't do any of the things that I'm doing these days. Certainly not running up mountains or anything like that. But my parents did kind of nurture, going out with the family, getting outdoors as much as possible, whether that just be down to the local park or down to the beach. We did kind of get out as a family quite a bit. I do have some memories of, climbing up mountains when I was a kid, and, going on short little hikes. But really my love for the outdoors has happened in the last maybe 15 years, like since I was, in my early 20s, going out with friends, just, hey, do you want to go on a surfing trip? I think surfing was like the first thing that happened to me when I kind of had this little switch go off, and I just kind of felt the power of the ocean, felt the power of those waves kind of propelling me forward. And then like camping out on the beach that night, and just, being surrounded by nature, and just, not feeling stressed whatsoever. Just this a connection with nature, but also a letting go of everything else. So I think that was the first time I really kind of felt that power come over. And then like hiking kind of happened from that, where, we might be going on a surfing trip, and we might go pop off this trail and go for a walk for an hour or so. And then 2 hours, and then 3 hours, and then 4 days later I'm still like hiking around on some trail in Ireland. But yeah, it was a gradual thing in my young adulthood, I suppose.
That's it. Well, it's wonderful, isn't it, to cultivate those experiences and to broaden your boundaries or your horizons, even as you head out and do different things. I mean, you mentioned starting with water, and then that sort of evolved into naturally hiking. I mean, it's so funny, isn't it? Because we all walk every day. But to think about taking it to the outdoors and having it almost become, a hobby is kind of a weird thought, isn't it, really? Especially since our ancestors would have been doing it in order to survive, and nowadays it's a leisure activity.
Yeah, like, going on a 20-mile hike, or a 30-kilometer hike in a day seems like a big challenge. And it is, like, for a lot of people that's a big challenge. But you think, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, that would have just been, what people need to do on a daily basis, or, doing that once a week, whereas we're doing that maybe once every few months, and it's a huge challenge. But it absolutely still is a huge challenge, especially when you have a 10-kilo bag in your back.
That's kind of part of the appeal, though, the challenge, isn't it?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like there's the challenge for yourself, but sometimes there's a little bit of competitiveness there as well. You see someone else, that your friend has done something, and you're like, oh, okay, I need to go and do that.
That's it. I mean, you mentioned that, you started surfing with friends and hiking with friends. Do you have a preference over sort of hiking or doing outdoor activities alone or in company?
Yeah, that's it's funny because since the end of the first lockdown in 2020, which for us over here would have been around June, I think, I started going out on a lot of hikes on my own, purely because that's all I could really do. I couldn't really meet up with anybody because we still weren't able to get into each other's cars. We could probably meet up out on the trail, but I think it was just as easy for me to go out on my own. So I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of day hiking, so I was able to bring, my phone and listen to a podcast or an audiobook while I was out there. And I really loved that ability to just kind of tune out and listen to a book about something really interesting, or to just completely tune out of that altogether and just have the headphones off and just be connected with nature around me. So I love that. But I love going hiking with friends. And some of my fondest memories are with friends out hiking. I did a trip there with two friends at the end of September. We did a 100-mile hike around the Slieve Bloom Mountains in Ireland.
Okay.
One of my favorite trips that I took all year, or over a number of years. And with Paul, also a hiker, we've done plenty of hiking trips together, and some of my fondest memories are with him out hiking on trails or surfing. So it's I don't have a definitive answer for you. I can't say one is better than the other. I have different ways of remembering either.
That's it. They're kind of two different experiences, but I don't know. I thought I'd ask because it's something I get asked. I'm like, on the fence with kind of both, and as you say, they are two completely different experiences.
Yeah, like there's this goes for a lot of things. There's a certain comfort of being like, I don't have an answer for you, because they're both good in their own right. I love hiking on my own. There's a time for that. There's a time for me to just be like, no, I just need to go and do this by myself. But there's a time for group hiking or going on adventures with friends.
That's it. You talked there about hiking by yourself. It's sort of giving you that headspace, to sort of paraphrase it there. And obviously there's a big movement for getting outside for the benefit of mental health. Obviously I run Spend More Time in the Wild. We're all about seeing people get outside for improving their mental and physical health. Are you able to recognize in yourself when you're at a particular point in your headspace where you need to get outside?
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it's those times where I'm telling myself not to get out.
Yeah.
It's those times when I'm waking up and lying in my bed and thinking, I don't want to go outside today. And they're the times where I'm like, you do need to go outside yourself. Go outside. So there's a battle that goes on. But every single time, 10 out of 10 times, I will go outside and it will be the right thing to do. And 10 out of 10 times, if I don't go outside, it was probably the wrong thing to do. Staying at home, it's fine, especially when it's a really cold day or it's miserable outside. But every single time that I have decided to go out, it's been a good thing.
That's it. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm on absolutely the same page. It's sometimes very hard to get yourself outside, but once you're out, it's absolutely no regrets.
Yeah.
Would you sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I said 10 out of 10 times when you stay at home, it's not the right thing. That's not necessarily true. I will take that back. 10 out of time, every single time you go outside, it is a good idea. But sometimes it's so hard to go outside. But that's absolutely fine. You're absolutely fine to stay inside. But if you make that decision to go out, you won't regret it.
That's it. It's about whatever it is you need in that situation. But say, having been in this situation yourself, say you were chatting to somebody who wanted to be able to do what you do, which is recognize that getting outside is going to help you. Maybe it'll help with a more productive workflow or just help with some creativity. Would you have any sort of words of advice for somebody who is struggling with that get up and go?
Like for me, it's been hard, and it still is hard, to have that internal battle to kind of convince yourself you need to go outside, you need to put on your shoes, you need to go outside. But there's been days where it's been so hard that the furthest I can go is down to the local shop, or just walk around the housing estate that I live in, or get into the local park and just walk around for 30 minutes and come home. And that was enough. That was enough to just get me through that day. And then the next day I might go longer, or that weekend I might go, you know what, I'm going to put it in the diary that I'm going to go up to the Wicklow Mountains, which is just beside me here. And I'm going to go hike a trail for 2 hours. And that's enough. And then I'll plan to do something further down the line. So if it's a short-term thing, maybe just something small, just something to get to keep yourself, or to keep your brain working, and to get outside at the four walls. But maybe plan something, maybe have something for the weekend, have something for 2 weeks away that I'm going to go and do something a little bit longer, a little bit more challenging.
That's it. And like you say, that accountability with yourself, I like that you said, put it down in the diary, that's what you're going to try and commit to and pursue that. I think that's awesome. So
Yeah.
you have been a rather smart chap, in my opinion, taking your passions and teaming up with your good friends, Paul and Pete, and you developed the Hiiker app. Would you mind giving us a little rundown as to what the Hiiker app is all about?
Sure. Well, I will just say first and foremost, this is Paul's baby. I won't take that crown away from him at all. This is his baby. He's worked this is his life work. I suppose myself, I've come in to help him talk about it from the start, and Pete has come in to help out as well with the design. But Hiiker is definitely the brainchild of a lot of work from Paul, and a lot of discussion amongst ourselves as to what do we think is the next thing for long distance hiking, and what do people need to make it more accessible. There's a lot of hiking guides out there, books, apps, websites, but there's a lot of sifting through all of these different platforms, trying to find the right information for you. And we found one of the biggest struggles for planning a long distance hike. So what we consider a long distance hike is anything that's over 15 miles.
Okay.
There's a lot of planning that goes involved in that. So you have to go to this website, you have to buy this book, you have to go to this blog to find out what is the right climate for that area. Where am I going to stay if I need to stay on this trail? And the difficulty is trying to find all that information. So we try to make that as accessible as possible in one app. So when you go on to say find one of the 1,600 trails, as you said, across the globe, say you wanted to find information about the South Downs Way in the UK, the app will give you the trail information. So it'll give you the distance, it'll give you the elevation profile across the entire trail. It'll give you all of the accommodation and amenity options that are available. So that will be campgrounds, commercial campgrounds, hotels, hostels, all of the accommodation, your amenities, your shops, pubs, restaurants, pharmacies, hospitals, if you're in a bit of an emergency, you need to go somewhere, public transport, you name it, everything that you need to kind of plan out your itinerary on a trail is in this app. So it's really the purpose of this is to make it as accessible as possible, because some people don't want to go and do a 10-day trail and camp every single night. Some people might want to stay in a hostel or a B&B, and a lot of people do that, but a lot of people don't know that you can do that, because they see hiking as this, no, you have to stay in a tent the entire way out there. So it's trying to make it accessible to people that want to do the entire trail camping, or to do a trail and stay in a hotel. It's whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, to be honest. I've been using the Hiiker app pretty much since you guys launched it. Been keeping up to date with all the updates, and it's definitely a bit of a, like, I'm sort of shifted from just like mindlessly scrolling through Instagram to mindlessly scrolling through the Hiiker app. But the trouble is, like, I just get carried away. It's like, oh, I'll go here and here and here, and it's like, oh, well, after COVID, I'll go here and here and here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I looked at your favorites list on Hiiker, and it's just the reams of trails.
Yeah, that's not even up to date, I have to admit. But it is insane though. Like, as you say, you pick up a guidebook. I mean, I'm sat right next to my guidebook shelf here, and it is quite covered in guidebooks and maps of all different kinds. But they do go out of date, and the publishers put out guidebooks every 2-3 years. I mean, I'm a big user of Trailblazer, and Cicerone as well, quite big in the UK. But they need to keep these books up to date, and the only way to do that is to republish every couple of years. I've just finished editing The Cleveland Way, a long distance film through Yorkshire in England, and I was just doing a little bit of research since I walked it in 2019, and some of the campsites I stayed at are now closed for good. So therefore, the guidebook I used is somewhat invalid, and that is the awesome thing about the Hiiker app, is it's up to date. You guys work tirelessly keeping it up to date, but there is so much information on there. Where on earth do you start when it comes to gathering all of this information?
There's plenty of sources that we use. We trawl the internet for sources. There's OpenStreetMaps, and there's tons of information that's already there. There's a lot of blog websites, a lot of guidebooks as well. They will put up their information as open source. We actually talk to a lot of hikers too about their experiences, which is it's a large body of work. When you're trying to communicate to people who have hiked over 1,600 trails from around the world. But I suppose the beauty of Hiiker is in the tech, and I'm not obviously the right person to tell you about that. But Paul has developed quite a sophisticated, I suppose, washing machine of data, or for data. So when this information comes in, it's processed in a very, very efficient way, so that we can get a trail on, literally from finding out the name of the trail, we can get that trail, polyline, GPX, all the accommodation and amenity information onto the app in, less than a couple of hours. So it's something that's taken a long time to develop, and it's something that Paul and I and all the guys in Hiiker are really, really proud of, that we can actually develop this, can scale this quite quickly. So if you look at our Trail Explorer map on the Hiiker website, because it's not just a mobile app, we actually have a fully functioning website as well, where it links to your mobile phone. So you can actually plan something on the Hiiker website and it goes to your phone. But if you look at our Trail Explorer page, so it's a map of the entire globe with all the trails that we have, you'll notice that there's like a lot of gaps. So we don't have any trails in South America. We only have a small handful of trails in Canada. We've nothing in Africa. We've nothing in, well, we've a few now in Asia, but we have a long ways to go. We only scratched the surface of Australia and New Zealand as well. So we know that we need to fill all of those gaps. And with this process that Paul has developed, we can get that done quite efficiently. So, if we discover 1,000 trails in South America, like over the course of a month or so, we can have those trails up on the platform. So that's the really exciting thing about this, is that, we don't have to, read 1,000 trail guidebooks and then translate that into a trail map. We can actually get that on in an hour or so, maybe even less. Some trails only take 20 minutes, so all depends. So it's been a long, hard job for Paul to develop that into what it is.
Incredible. It really is incredible. So you mentioned working with Paul and with Pete, I can imagine, very closely. What is it like working with your best mates? There's definitely a bit of a, people always say, don't work with your friends, or don't work with your partner. I mean, I work with my partner, so I can speak for myself, but I would love to know what it's like for you.
It's great. Honestly, that's completely honest, and I'm not just saying that because they're probably listening to this. No, honestly, it's great. Like myself and Paul, we've worked on like wacky projects over the years, and we've all, almost started businesses together in the past, and we've had some heated arguments, and we still do. We like it, but I think it's strengthened our friendship a lot. Like he is like one of my best mates, and I don't think a business would come through that. And like we've had to make decisions that in the past that have, could jeopardize our friendship. But we've always we've always put our friendship first. And I think that's strengthened our friendship over the years. So it has its ups, it has its downs, but it's great. And with Pete as well, I suppose Pete is a very happy-go-lucky guy. Really relaxed, really chill. I don't think I've ever had an argument with Pete, and it's just kind of strengthened that even further as well, to know that no matter how heated myself and Paul will get, Pete will never jump in and go, both these are idiots. He might actually, sorry, I take that back. He probably would do that. Like, the two of you shut the hell up because we need to get something done here. It's great. I'll stop rambling.
Well, that's so good to hear, and
It was a little bit of nervous rambling there.
Get the right words out. No, it really is good to hear because, I think as I said at the beginning of the question, a lot of people are afraid to take on projects with their friends just because of the stigma out there that it's not the best idea. But I think it sounds like you guys have completely nailed it, putting the friendship, the relationships that you guys have built first, and then the business comes second is the way to steer it. And I suppose it gives you complete space to be you and to be creative in what you guys are good at.
Yeah, like there's, as I said, like we've had heated arguments before, and like that's just commonplace, especially in a startup. You're like big decisions that need to be made nearly on a daily basis. But I suppose over the years we've learned to separate that. I'm in a WhatsApp group with Paul and Pete and like a few other friends, and like in one group we're having, a Barney. And in the other group, we're like sending memes to each other and laughing about it. We're able to separate it that easily.
That's so good. Yeah, that's very admirable, I have to admit. So what is the future for Hiiker then? So, as I mentioned in the introduction, 1.5 years or so you've been going now. Where are you trying to steer this ship?
So the Hiiker, as I said, there's huge gaps around the world where we need to get trails. Like we said from the start, we want to cover every single long distance trail that's on the planet. And we thought we had, Ireland and the UK covered because that was when we first launched, was Ireland and the UK. And we're still finding trails in the UK. We're still finding trails in Ireland. It's never ending. Like there's trails everywhere.
Wow.
In 2020, early 2020, around March or so, just before the pandemic hit, we launched into the US with about 650 trails. So that would include obviously your long distance, I suppose the big three as they call them, the CDT, the PCT, and the AT. But there's plenty more trails that are out there that you don't have to give up your job and go and do. So we have a lot of trails to add. We essentially want to be the number one long distance hiking app in the market. We have other ideas to go out and do day trails and put them onto the app, and that is definitely on the list of things that we could go into. There's potential for other apps as well to be born out of this. But at the moment, we're kind of just steering the ship in getting to that number one spot and to cover as many long distance trails as we possibly can across the globe.
So wow is kind of all I have to say. I think it's amazing, and it's so good to be able to use the app. I mean, I can testify that it is such a helpful tool to have when you're on the trail. I mean, never a substitute so much for a map and compass, but to have that knowledge there at your fingertips, even wild camping spots. I like that it even recommends that. So it's great.
Yeah, like obviously wild camping, you need to use the local laws and everything that are available to you. But yeah, we just recommend some spaces where if you're able to, you can go here.
Absolutely.
Like there's, in terms of the tech as well, like there's a lot more features that we have planned, a few more things that we are thinking of integrating. At the moment, we're actually just about to launch a commenting function. So we had it before, but we had to remove it and to wash it and put it back in. But what this will allow users to do is to leave reviews about not just the trail, but also about certain amenities and accommodations. It will allow people to leave comments about certain parts of the trail. So if there's a water faucet that is broken, or if there's a river that dries during the hotter months, or if there is a section of the trail that is closed because of snowpacking or because of maintenance. We try to update that information as much as possible, but as the thing grows, we're actually going to be more reliant on users to be able to give other users that information. And there could be stuff that like we will never be able to know, like stuff that you'll only be able to see on the trail when you get there. So this functionality will just make the user experience that much better, because you're getting live information straight from someone who's just been on the trail.
It reminds me of, do you remember that Harry Potter map, which is ever shifting and updating as things are happening? It reminds me of that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that before, because Caitlin, my daughter, she's a massive Harry Potter fan, and I'm much more of a Lord of the Rings fan.
Oh, same.
But I remember when we were watching that, and we saw that in part in the movie. I was like, that's pretty much Hiiker. that's what we're going to do.
So good.
Damn it. J.K. Rowling was way ahead of us.
Yeah, well, kind of, but you're just adapting it to the times. So that is Hiiker. But how about you then? Do you have any hiking or outdoorsy goals for 2021, or just the future in general?
Yeah, I think my only real goals for 2021 are all outdoor based. I am leaving my job. Hopefully you're putting this out there when I've already left my job. So I also have a full-time job in the media industry, and I am vacating that role to basically put myself fully involved in Hiiker for a while, just to try and give that a little bit more of a boost, to get to a place where, we can get to the next stage comfortably, get more investment, expand the business basically. But outside of that, and looking for a new job in the meantime, I am going to be hiking a trail in Ireland called the E8 Path. It's one of the European Ramblers paths, the E8, that I think actually goes from Istanbul, technically, across Europe, and then crosses the ferry into the UK and then into Ireland, and then it goes down to Cork, the Beara Peninsula, actually, that you'd be quite familiar with, down to Jersey Island. But I'm just doing the Ireland section, or Irish section of that, and I'm going to be going from Dunleary Harbour right down to Cork to Jersey Island, and I'm going to try and do that as quick as I can.
Wow.
Aiming for an FKT with a buddy of mine from the UK, Impala. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yes.
Very cool dude. That just told me that I was doing this hike, and I was like, okay, cool, that's what I'm doing. So that probably will be a bunch of other hikes in Ireland, and I'm also planning on a couple of long distance runs as well, because trail running is something that I've found a passion for over the last 12 months, and I have some big runs that I have planned for 2021.
That all sounds very exciting. How far is that longer trail that you're planning on doing?
So it's 608 kilometers.
Just a little walk then.
just walking to Cork, basically. Myself and my housemate, we were planning on doing a run to Cork one time.
Wow.
And we quickly realized when we looked at that map, it was like 608 kilometers of running.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite far.
Not yet.
Well, that's it. You mentioned you got into your trail running. I have a bit of a past of trail running, and certainly very different from hiking. What is it about trail running that has perked your ears up and got you outside?
Yeah, so I've had a love-hate relationship with running in general for years. And
I can relate.
Yeah, like I don't know about you, but I initially got into running when I was much younger to lose weight, because I was quite overweight when I was in my teens, and that kind of spilled into my 20s, and then I had Caitlin, and I was like, okay, and I had this decision, I don't want to go down this path anymore. So I got into running to lose weight, and that's all it was. And I think because I got into it for that reason, I always saw it as the hardest possible way to lose weight. And like, I don't know, I don't do my research on it, but it probably isn't the best way to lose weight. There's other ways and better ways to lose weight. But I fell out of love with it. I started to get a lot of injuries from it. I think the longest run I had done at the time was around 15 kilometers.
Okay.
Not a huge distance by by, I suppose, my standards today. But at the time, I thought that was the biggest achievement I'd ever achieve, biggest, physical achievement that I'd ever achieve. And then I tried to do a half marathon and my leg blew out. So my ITB band on my left leg it felt like it snapped when I was doing the half marathon. And I was out of running for months. And then I was just back on and off doing like little 5Ks here and there. And then this year, I think because of the pandemic, I decided, no, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to figure out what it is that I don't like, or figure out what it is that I do like. So I figured it out. I was running too fast. And I'm not saying that I was Usain Bolt or anything like that. I was just running too fast for me. So my housemate, a good buddy of mine, Jordan, he told me to slow down. So I slowed down and I figured out I can actually do this, and I enjoyed it. And then started going out for longer runs, and then started doing trail runs. Because I have this love for hiking, I knew a lot of the hiking trails that are around. I knew what ones would be well suited for running. So I took to them, and a trail that it would have normally taken me 3 hours to do while hiking, it's taken me, the guts of an hour to do. And I'm not trying to beat any particular time. I'm just enjoying the surroundings while pushing myself a little bit more. And I've recently done a hiking trail over here, the Dublin Mountains Way, which spans from basically one side of Dublin to the other while using the Dublin Mountains as your path, which is 45 kilometers. And I did that over the span of, I think it was just over 5 hours. And it was like one of the best runs I've ever done. We actually ran from our house. We ran from the front door because the Dublin Mountains Way only starts maybe like 4 or 5 kilometers away from here. So we ran to the starting point and then ran across the Dublin Mountains, and we finished in a place called Shankill on the coast of Dublin. And it was almost surreal knowing that we had ran that far over mountains, over trails. We got to see all these places that we're familiar with, but we've usually haven't had to drive to get to. There's places up. There's a valley called the Scalp, and it's a pretty famous spot for bouldering. Another sport I partake in. But I've driven there. It's taken me 30 minutes to drive there, and I ran from my house. And that was only the halfway point. It was a very surreal experience. And I think that's the what I love about these runs. It's about the adventure. It's just the same as hiking to me. It's I'm just hiking faster, really.
Well, yeah, more of that for 2021 then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the runs I'm planning on doing is the Wicklow Way, which is now I will say that with bated breath. I don't know if it's actually going to be possible, but it's 130 kilometers. It'll be by far the longest run I've ever done. It's over pretty tricky terrain as well. There's a lot of elevation, but I'm going to try and do that, whether it be over a day or 2 days. But it's certainly something I have in my in my line of sight.
It's so good to have those goals though, and I found with running it was a bit of a tripping up point to get hung up over the stats, like the distance and the time. So I've just started getting back out. I've had, like you, so many injuries that have held me back, and they still do, but I'm just keeping it short. But as I'm out there, I find my mind wanders about future goals that I could set, and it spurs you on, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like I talk about like the distances that are there. It's not necessarily about the distance. I think it was more so I want to run the Wicklow Way. It's not that I want to run 130 kilometers. I want to run that because I think that would be so much fun. Like I love the idea of running to Cork, like the E8 path. I talked about running that route, not because it's 605 kilometers. It's just, it would be so much fun to run from my front door to an island off the west coast of Cork. That would just be amazing.
I can really see how inspired you are, because your face is just lit up. Like you're very passionate about this.
Yeah, like it's hiking faster. That's all it is.
That's it.
So much fun. apart from the parts where you're keeling over, just waiting for the day for the run to be finished, but it's type 2 fun. It's that
Yeah.
thing, like
Yeah.
I know I'm going to be in a heap. I know I'm going to be uh, in a lot of pain. I'm going to be effing and blind, and I'm going to be, in a pain cave at parts. But I know when I finish it, it'll be the most ecstatic feeling. And that's how I felt when I did the Dublin Mountains Way. I did another long run as well. The last kilometer was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But as soon as I stopped, as soon as I finished and I realized I just did that, your body just gets taken over by this undescribable feeling of ecstasy.
That's it. Definitely part of the appeal, isn't it? Hitting that exhaustion point in a way that, well, most of life doesn't really offer these days.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's an experience with when you have with friends as well. You kind of get to this delirious place, and when you're close to somebody and they're going through the same thing that you are, it's almost hilarious. I've been in the depths of my own mind when I'm going on these long runs, and I'm just tunnel vision, and then I just look up and I just see my friend running beside me doing the same thing. And I start laughing because I was just there. I just felt like how you look.
Collective suffering.
Yeah. And then you just go into this uncontrollable laughter.
That's it.
Which is fun.
That's so cool. All right, well, I'd like to take a bit of a sort of a U-turn, but not, because we're still keeping on the theme of the planet. And I'd like to talk about your work in climate change. So when I was doing a little bit of digging, I found out about the Cool Planet Experience, which, as far as I can tell, is the first climate visitor centre in the world to be developed. It's in Ireland. I think it's in Dublin or near Dublin. It's where? In Wicklow.
Wicklow, yeah.
Wicklow, okay. And I think I discovered in 2017 you became a champion for them. What does that look like? And could you tell us a little bit more about why climate change is important to you?
Yeah, so the Cool Planet Experience, I'll start with that. That was a initiative initially set up by a guy called Norman Crowley. What he wanted to do was, he wanted to create this experience that you spoke of, it's like a museum almost, or an engaging kind of gallery where you go through various different rooms and you get a different perspective on climate change. So whether it be what it's doing to ecologies, so different species of animals, what's it doing there, what's it doing to you as a human being, what's it doing to countries, what's it doing to the air, to the sea. But this is one little experience in the Wicklow Mountains on the east coast of Ireland. Ireland's not a big country, but it's going to be very hard for people to get there, and everybody to pack into the one room. So you wanted to educate the entire country, and it didn't stop there. You wanted to use this as a model that you can use around the world. So to get to the next phase without building experiences all over the country, obviously it's going to be really expensive. He would train people up, these champions, under the model, the Al Gore climate reality model, to deliver these talks and to educate and to be correspondents and be champions for this message, which is that this is what's going on in the world right now in terms of climate. This is what's going to happen if we don't change what we're doing, and here's some solutions. So it was kind of an educational piece. It was also educational in terms of what's happening, but also, showing that there's hope and there's things that we can do. So I was elected as the Dublin champion, because there's 32 counties in Dublin, and there's one champion for each county, and we represent that. And I would go out and talk to people in Dublin, but I'd also represent Cool Planet, talking to the media, doing radio interviews, doing newspaper articles, but also I might appear on various different panels, I'm part of the Dublin City Participation Network. It's a mouthful, where I would be, talking about various different environmental issues, but also certain things that might not necessarily fall under the environmental bracket. I would come at that from an environmental point of view or climate change point of view, such as buildings and water use and waste, stuff like that. So we were trained up over a couple of days, and I've gone out and given talks all around the county. Since then, we've actually grown the champion group to more or less double. So we have now in Dublin, I think we have about 3 champions, because it's such, obviously, it's the population density of the country of over 1.2 million people in the county. And there's only 4 million people in the country. So we need obviously a lot more people here. And yeah, that's where kind of Cool Planet came from. And I've used that then to kind of propel myself forward to a goal that I kind of set out for myself back, when we were talking about, why I went back into education for marketing. This was one of the reasons why I did that, is because I wanted to end up in an organization that worked for climate change, or against climate change, an environmentalist organization, or an outdoors company that would have an environmental message and doing the right thing, essentially. I think obviously the messaging around climate change is it's incredibly important. It's not really about us right now. It's not about our generation. It's about the future generations. Like Caitlin, like my daughter, she will be seeing the brunt force of climate change, but we're actually seeing it now. We are seeing the effects of climate change right now. So it's very important for people to understand the reality of what's going on. I've subsequently gone on to other organizations and worked with them. Like in Ireland, globally, we have Friends of the Earth. So I've worked with them. In Ireland, we have another organization called Stop Climate Chaos. I've worked with Extinction Rebellion as well, on a lot of their actions and their talks that they would give around the country. And I've tried to instill an environmental kind of message in the company that I currently work for, but I'm leaving, by setting up the environmental organization, the sustainability committee, by trying to get our company to be a lot more environmentally aware. And that actually led on to the establishment of the Broadcast Authority of Ireland Sustainability Committee. So that grouped all the media organizations, the broadcast media organizations in the country, to form a sustainability committee. And it's the first of its kind in the world. And that was, that only just happened this year. So that's a kind of a whirlwind as to, my toe in the water of environmentalism. But it certainly is a goal of mine that I want to be in that realm, and using the outdoors as a vessel for that, which is obviously a very easy link to make, because anyone who loves the outdoors, anyone who's working in the outdoors or just gets out on a regular basis, will appreciate what we need to do to stop what's happening, or to mitigate it at least, or even to adapt to whatever is going to come. That's only climate change in the outdoors.
I have to say, I'm so fascinated by the topic as a whole, and I wonder if another time we should come together and specifically talk about climate change. But for now, I'd just like to ask. I mean, I can see how this topic has sort of weaved its way through your career and just into your day-to-day life. But for our listeners, do you have any sort of top sustainability tips that you would leave them with?
Leave the car at home. Number one. I don't like telling people what to do. This is the hardest thing. What I've found over the years is it's really hard to tell people what to do, because their defense mechanisms go up straight away. Well, like, who's this guy? Why is he telling me what to do? So yeah, just be conscientious, as conscientious as you possibly can. Try and think about the impact of what it is you're doing. You can't do it all the time. Obviously, I'm not saying, when you're buying a sandwich that where did that bread come from? Where did that mayonnaise come from? Is it in plastic packaging? But just do your best. And obviously, there's bigger players out there that are kind of making the massive impacts on what's happening in the world. But us as individuals, we should be doing, like, we can't ask somebody else to do something and not do something yourself. You have to look after your own garden. Leave the car at home. Try not to eat meat. Buy local. That's really all we can really do, and obviously trying not to use disposable products. But they're the only things you really can do as a human being at the moment.
I'm definitely a big believer that every little helps, and it's a collective change that needs to happen, a collective shift in consciousness. So I'm completely on board with what you said. We actually spoke before we hit record, didn't we, about leave no trace, and I guess with Hiiker as well, and myself too, we're trying to get people outside, but there's a sort of win-lose side to that for the environment. Heavy footfall, litter, campsites degrading the landscapes. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, and we actually spoke about this briefly on the podcast when I had you on the Hiiker podcast, that it is sometimes it is a kind of a moral dilemma when we're announcing a trail, or there might be a trail that only we know of, or people in the local community might have only known of, and we've all of a sudden put it up on Hiiker, and then all of a sudden there's more people going to it. Yes, there is a moral dilemma there, but what we try to do in all of our messaging when it goes out, when we send out emails, and we send out social media posts or anything like that, is we must practice leave no trace. So if you're staying in a campground or you're wall camping, obviously use the leave no trace guidelines. Go to leavenotrace.org, and you'll see the guidelines clearly there. If you're wall camping, stay away from the trail, camp at night, get up early in the morning, and essentially leave no trace. Try and leave absolutely nothing behind you. These trails that we map out on Hiiker, they are what's called in Ireland and in the UK, I think, as well, as waymarked trails or national trails. So they are maintained by trail organizations for the most part. Some of them aren't, some of them are. There's a lot of work to be done on who maintains those trails in various different jurisdictions. But even if it is maintained, even if there is people that go out and they fix up the parts of the trail, we need to take care and have due diligence when we go out there and hike these trails. So, don't pick up rocks and pile them up on top of each other. It might sound innocuous, but that could have repercussions on the ecology of that area. Don't pull leaves off trees. Don't chop down trees, to make a fire. I remember I was over in Yosemite hiking last year, and we were building a fire, because the wildfire laws over there are different to what they are over here, and you're able to do it, but there is a law that if it's on the ground, if it's dead, you can use it. Don't pull anything off a tree. And when you do use a fire, you must disperse everything. You can't leave trace of the fire actually even existing, because other people will then eventually just come over and start using it again. When it comes to Hiiker, we try to instill that in all of our messaging. But hopefully listeners of this will kind of take on board that doesn't matter what we do, doesn't matter what the trail organizations do, you do need to take it upon yourself to leave no trace.
Absolutely. We are all responsible, and we have to protect what we love. It's definitely a mindset. There's a time and place for the laws, but really it's about that collective consciousness, as we talked about. Yeah. All right, then. Go on. Sorry.
Just say another thing as well. If you see something on the trail, like if you see a piece of rubbish on the trail, just because you didn't put it there, doesn't mean you can't pick it up.
Yeah.
There's, just pick it up. I usually go out with a backpack, and there's side pockets. And if I see rubbish on the trail, pick it up, put it in the side pocket. When you get to a bin, put it in. Whoever dropped that there, they might have done it by accident, but also they may have done it on purpose. It doesn't matter. You do your bit because you love you love the outdoors. So
that's it. Lead by example.
Lead by example. That's the
there
word.
You go. All right. Well, I can see that time is ticking by. This has been a fantastic conversation. And I think to wrap this up, this is the first official podcast that's been recorded with a guest. And I have come up with 10 quickfire questions. So I'm going to throw them at you and take as long as you want, really, answering each question. We can dive a little bit deeper. But if you're ready, we'll kick it off with question number 1.
Okay, I think I'm ready.
Here we go. So what was the last book you read and loved?
Oh, can I say something that I'm currently reading?
Go for it.
Yeah, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes, get in. Nothing beats a good read of The Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, I've done it. This is my third go. I'm loving it every bit.
Okay, I have an additional question now. You're getting 11. Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit?
Oh, Lord of the Rings, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, we can dive into that at some point. Good stuff. Okay, question number 2. Are you a morning or an evening person?
Oh, evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could be... Sorry, go on.
No. Let's keep it quick fire.
Boom, quick fire. Okay, if you could be reincarnated as an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be? We're going deep.
I mean, I have my favorite ice cream flavor, but do I want people to eat me?
Wow, you are
wow, what an existential question.
Absolutely.
Honeycomb.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, I know.
Proud. Okay, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
An archaeologist.
Good choice.
Dinosaur fossils, that's what I wanted to do.
That's it, go dig in the dirt. What is your most unusual talent?
Ooh. Well, I suppose you have a video, so I can bend my thumb really far back. I'm double jointed.
Wow. That's special. Nice party trick. Who has inspired you most in your life?
Oh, tough question. No, it's the easy answer. Caitlin, my 11-year-old daughter. We walked the South Downs Way last year, and it was one of the most inspiring things that I've ever seen in my entire life. So, that is beautiful, actually. Okay, so we're going to go really deep now. What is your favorite food? Ooh. This is completely contrary to what I was saying earlier on about being in the middle and the comfort of not having to pick a favorite. God damn it! Just come on, pizza. Pizza
for the win. What do you like on your pizza, though?
Here's a tough one. Or a polarizing answer is pineapple.
Pineapple.
I love pineapple.
Oh, yeah. Man. Do you know that when I was making up these questions, I was like, one of my questions was going to be, should pineapple be on pizzas? Apparently, yes.
Well, let's answer that question.
Look at that. You read my mind.
2 in 1.
When you are 80 years old, what do you think will matter to you most about your life?
How much pizza I ate. No. How much time I spent with those that I love. I think that's whether it be indoors, outdoors. Obviously, outdoors would be the preference, but time with people that I love.
Powerful. Yeah. Speaking of the outdoors, do you have a favorite outdoor space?
Ooh. Well, I went to Yosemite last year, and it's still in my mind. I still have dreams about it. I have to go back there. I'm sure there's plenty more to go to, but I think that's been the highlight of my outdoors life so far.
That's pretty insane there. I've not been, but would absolutely love to soon.
Yeah. I got to touch El Capitan, at the bottom of El Capitan.
Yeah.
I'm a climber, and like that was just it was like touching the chalice. Holy
Insane. Okay, last question. Do you have any catchphrases or mantras that you live your life by?
Live, laugh, love. No. I don't know if this is backwards. Oh, it's not.
All gas, no brakes. That's good. Forward only.
Yeah, like that's actually not mine. I don't know if you follow it. There's a YouTube channel called All Gas No Brakes over in the States, and it's quite absurd. But I actually do like that. I like all gas, no brakes, and obviously no gas. Try not use gas. Gas is a fossil fuel, and we need to get rid of that. But just the mantra of it is good. Just keep going forward. Obviously have some view of what's behind you. Yeah, learn from your mistakes, learn from your experiences, but just keep going forward.
Nice one. I'll have to check out that YouTube channel, I think. Well, listen, this has been an absolute pleasure. Oh, I'm sure. Laughing is good. That'll be my sad day viewing then. Well, this really has been an absolute pleasure. It's been so good to dive a little bit deeper into you as an individual, into Hiiker, and into your work in climate change as well. Are there any last words of advice or anything you'd like to share with the listeners before we sign off for the day?
First of all, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, and I'm privileged to be your first guest on the podcast. I suppose just spend more time in the wild.
Look at that.
You said it yourself. It's nature's number one therapy. You spend a bit of time in the outdoors every single day, and you'll be a happy person.
That's it. Nice one, Eoin. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I really hope you enjoyed this first episode from the One Wildlife podcast. Eoin was an awesome guest, and you can find out more about him and his work with Hiiker and climate change through the Spend More Time in the Wild website. If you'd like to gain behind-the-scenes access of Wild or enjoy exclusive podcast episodes, please also head onto our Patreon page, which is www.patreon.com/spend more time in the wild.